being with a person, in other words, focusing on the other, is first of all understanding that there is something going on between 4 different quadrants. Okay, so if this is a very simplified stick figure, and this could be you or the other person, but in this case, let's say it's the other. Okay, so when you're understanding another person and you're looking at their behaviors, you're going to notice that there's what they say, what they text, what they write, what they post in social media. There's what they do. When did they send it? There's also the actions that they took. So that's one quadrant. And then there's what they think. So that's the mental model. For example, I'm French and I might think my conflict is actually just a very positive experience, and then somebody else might think something else, and then their thinking is not shared, but it's influencing the whole situation. And then there is the feel. There's what they feel about the situation. Obviously, this is super simplified and very wrong because it's simplified, but it's very useful to think of it like that. You could actually use this for yourself. I'd encourage you to draw this for yourselves and to start thinking in your own conflict, what did I say? What did the other say? What did I do? What did the other do? What do I feel and what does the other feel? And you very quickly notice that you can't do it because you don't know what the other one is feeling often. You're assuming perhaps what they're feeling. What are they thinking? So if you're in a conflict, for example, with a single person or an entity in business, unpacking this 4 buckets is going to help making sense of 2 different things. On one side here, you have what we call behaviors. In a general sense, it includes what people say, what they do. And on the other side here, you have what we would call the drivers of those behaviors. So obviously in a conflict, this is what we notice, but this is what matters. So rather than focusing on what people are saying and what they're doing in a dysfunctional conflict, one of the strategies that's going to help you is to step back and identify the drivers of that conflict. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And how are those matching? Are they aligned? No, they're probably not. Little example, I did a project on a design for a Finnish company called Metsä Tissue. We were designing toilet paper and kitchen roll, super exciting. And we were going around interviewing people in Poland and Norway, and there was this Norwegian dad whose son was a future ski champion. So he was really proud of his son. And in the kitchen, he was saying that he's very sustainable because he's Norwegian, he cares about the environment and the trees, and he doesn't want to use lots of paper. And he's like showing us his half sheets of paper that he uses, and he rationalizes, he thinks very much that he's a sustainable guy. And then we go to the back room and where he has his ski equipment, and I see a paper bin where it's full of papers, like not just little half sheets, but wads of paper, like huge amounts of paper. And I just ask him to show me, okay? Show instead of tell, because tell is often post-rationalized. So I said, can you show me what you do in here? And he's like, yeah, this is great. It's my son's ski equipment. I love doing this. So he starts showing me with this, and he takes like 6 pieces of paper. And he's completely unaware that he's doing it. So there's a layer which is, oh yeah, I think I say this, and I say I think this, and it's all good, I'm sustainable. And then in practice, because he's feeling passionate about his son, he suddenly changes his behavior. So this is a hint that actually he was not aligned. There was a disalignment between these 4 quadrants. He was not aware of those disalignments. It's a very human thing. That's what happens in conflicts. You might have somebody who's feeling really angry, who does something very irrational, but when you ask them what they did, they'll say something different and they think something different, and there's no connection between the 2. So being aware of what's going on in those 4 is basically like a reality check. If you're a pragmatic person, this is probably something you already do. But if you're upset about something, it's not enough to just look at it from the feeling. It's look, how are these 4 quadrants aligned?
And this is where we have very finely tuned instinctive muscles. And I'm sure pretty much everyone here has had this feeling that you're talking to someone and that something is weird, something is off. You know, that one person you see, you're walking in the street at night, and you see someone and immediately you get a weird vibe from that person because maybe the behavior doesn't match something, or you know that someone is lying to you because the picture doesn't match the sound. And this is a very good cue to do some digging and actually see, okay, I'm going to deliberately ask what that person is thinking and investigate what they feel. because that'll give you interesting data. This is what the police does. They check, you know, if the non-verbal matches the story that is being told. So obviously in the case of the person in the street at night, no, probably don't go and investigate that. It's not worth it. Just, you know, switch to the other side of the street and don't get murdered. But in professional settings, this is when you get that weird feeling that something is off, that's very generally a good indication that, oh, okay, I need to do a bit of digging on the emotional side and the cognitive side. And feeling is often underestimated because there's often this division of what is useful is rational and pragmatic, and the emotional part of us is just, it's nonsense. It's not as, you know, reliable or useful. It's not professional to deal with feelings. But that is actually absolutely not the case. We're feeling entities. And to pretend that we don't have feelings is to completely avoid a whole part of us. And that part of us that we avoid is for sure going to come back and interfere with the process at a later stage, including in ourselves. If we avoid too much conflict and we're like, no, I don't want to feel this, I'm going to, you know, put it aside, I'm going to pretend that I'm comfortable, you're basically you're planting the seeds of future conflict internally or maybe even externally, which is why we also encourage you to sometimes proactively seek conflict that is productive because of this question. So yeah, that was just on the...
Thank you, Jonas. Yeah. So it's really important to pay attention to those four and not just to what was said. Okay, key takeaway.